My mother rarely texts me. Therefore, when she does, it usually indicates that I'm about to die or that someone else has. This one simply stated, Family meeting, 7:00 p.m. mandatory attendance. Just a directive, like if I were one of her interns rather than her daughter. No hi, no, how are you? My hand was hovering over that dumb brass doorbell, with all the floral carvings, as I stood on the porch of the house where I grew up. I didn't have a racing heart. It was simply, still, as if it knew beforehand. I inhaled. A gleaming, immaculate Mercedes sat in the driveway and yelled, We're still better than you. The Sinclairs are like that. Prestige, status, and looks. 7-figure portfolios and Ivy League degrees. That's the money. Me, art was my choice. Actually, interior design, repurposed, eco-friendly furniture and sculptures. From the way they talk about it, you'd think I robbed a bank. Before I could knock, the door flung open. With her lips pursed, as if physically containing another criticism, my mother stood there. She remarked, You're late. I looked at my watch. 6:58. On time is yet 2 minutes too late in this family. The living room was tense and immaculately set up, as though it were for a success and control monthly picture shoot. With her legal briefcase at her feet like a weapon, my sister Rebecca sat with her legs crossed on the couch. As usual, Daniel, the youngest, was hooked to his phone, most likely checking cryptocurrency. My other brother Lucas is still wearing his scrubs, with his arms crossed and a face that suggests he would rather be dissecting a corpse, as well as my dad, standing close to the hearth, the traditional pose. He clasped his hands behind his back. General Sinclair, prepared to make a lecture about war. He said, Sit down, Savannah. One chair was present, on the other side of the mall, similar to a defendant in court. I took a seat. What is this about? Even though I already knew, I asked. Rebecca took out a bundle of papers from her briefcase. Dense, heavy, final. We've talked about the family's public image going forward, she stated in a flat, business-like voice, and we've reached a necessary decision, a choice. My mom nodded and sat down beside Lucas as if she needed encouragement. As though we were in a royal line, she went on. It's about maintaining the family's legacy. I grabbed the documents. I only needed to scan it to identify the keywords. I didn't even need to read it all. Breakup of familial ties. Giving up inheritance. Cutting off financial connections. Before I could stop myself, I let out a dry laugh. You're rejecting me. They remained silent. Just have a peek at me. Without even looking up from his phone, Daniel finally broke the stillness. It's not intimate. It's only business. I gazed at him. Daniel, I am your sister. He gave a shrug. My investors wouldn't comprehend your actions. Yes, exactly. My embarrassing pastime. You know, the company that covers my employees, my studio, and my rent. Lucas added in a chilly tone. You create crafts. It doesn't really make the Sinclair brand better. My fingers began to wrap around the papers. I had prepared myself for criticism. I had even anticipated some humiliation. However, it was exile. My mother's voice became softer, but it was still abrasive. We gave you every chance. The top educational institutions, the most effective relationships. And you threw everything away to paint and glue sticks. Take a deep breath. Where must I sign? I inquired. She blinked. She was surprised by that. She began, Savannah, if you'll just... Where? Should I sign? Rebecca gestured toward the page's bottom. It was finished 10 minutes later. I felt a sense of lightness as I put down the pen, as if the final thread tying me together had been severed. My father added, I hope you understand that this is what's best for the family. I got to my feet, stopped at the entrance. I whispered, You were always worried that I would damage the Sinclair name. It's funny. You never inquired about what I was building, or who I had already developed into. My mother was about to say something prepared and hollow, when I stopped her with a raised hand. You decided to interrupt me. Live with it now. I left. Behind me, the door clicked. Not a slam. Just one last time. With shaking hands and tears already streaming down my face, I went into my car. Don't cry aloud. Just continuous, silent heartbreak. the type that gets stuck in your ribs. They were my relatives. They had also determined that I was disposable, but I had had enough of pleading to fit in. After 3 days, I returned to my workshop, just myself and a piece of used wood that I was forming into a sculpture, no drama, no heat. I hadn't slept. I had hardly eaten. However, I had a job, because when the suffering becomes unbearable, that's what you do. You transfer it to another object. My business partner and dear friend Lena came by for coffee. You were actually harmed by them? With her eyes flaming, she muttered. I gave a nod. They ensured that I had severed all financial links. Not even the trust fund that my grandma established is accessible. You just signed it too? For what purpose was there a fight? Our head of marketing, Ethan, rushed in before she could respond, holding his laptop like a bomb to his chest. Savannah, you must view this. He forcefully put it on the table. From a Living and Style article, the screen flashed the headline, Introducing Savannah Sinclair, the artist who is reinventing sustainable interior design. Hold on. What? Lena almost let out a cry. They referred to you as an artist. Furthermore, take a peek at the outlet. This is enormous. Ethan continued to speak. Who do you think shared it? Business Forward. I blinked. The leading business publication? He smiled and nodded. They also want to feature you on the cover. I glanced at the TV, then at them. My name, my job. For everyone to see, in bold type. 3 days prior, I had been disconnected. I was front page news now. And this was just the start. I don't think karma exists. However, there are instances when the universe hits you so hard that you get bruised. And truthfully, I'll accept it. Everything changed quickly once the story went up. We increased weekly orders from 20 to 200. Our inbox blew up. A 6-month partnership was offered by a Manhattan premium design firm. A celebrity customer requested a custom piece from an independent architect. I felt unable to breathe, not because I was in a panic, but rather because, for the first time in my life, people were viewing my creations without applying a Sinclair perspective. It was also mine. No family name, no inheritance. Dinner parties are a waste of time. Just a lot of sawdust, my vision, and me. Lena felt ecstatic. A production assistant is required. With a double-shot espresso in one hand and a clipboard in the other, she chuckled, like, yesterday. The French Design Museum Sav just reposted this piece. I arched an eyebrow. Was I just referred to as avant-garde? Yes, she smiled. And truthfully, they are not incorrect. Being called a rising star, the same week that your own family legally removes you like a tumor, had a certain amusing quality. Then the phone rang. Blocked phone number. 9:07 p.m. I nearly didn't respond. However, curiosity prevailed. Hey? Quiet. Next, Savannah? I went cold. It had been years since I heard that voice. Not on the phone, not right away. Even when my father's voice said nothing helpful, it always had weight. He answered, I saw the article. As simple as that. No congratulations or how are you? He gets right to the point. It was. Amazing. I waited. Next month, the company is throwing a gala, an innovative charity auction. Your work would be appropriate. It nearly made me chuckle. Aloud. You want your fundraising to feature my glue and paint hobby? We shouldn't be overly dramatic. Dad, oh! Drama was taught to me by the best. You rejected me, I didn't text. It was just business. And this isn't? Quiet. You still have Sinclair tendencies. No, I'm not, I murmured quietly. That was something you ensured. I ended the call. I wish I could claim that I felt victorious. It's as if I've exacted my retribution. However, what is the reality? All it did was wear me out. Because they weren't sorry, I realized. They didn't feel proud. All they could say was that they were shocked I made it through. Worse, that I prospered. Rebecca sent me an email 2 days later. Not contacted. I didn't text. Sent an email. I think the disownment needs to be reviewed. Having your name on a public platform while not adhering to the Sinclair legacy carries dangers to your finances and reputation. Translation: we want to change history because your success makes us appear petty. I didn't respond. Rather, the first updated my design page with a fresh image. One of my favorite items was a coffee table I got at a flea market that was constructed out of a broken school desk. After reworking the shape and sanding it down, I inlaid shattered glass into a mosaic that told a rebuilding story. I added a caption: "Not everything that breaks should be thrown away. Some things simply require a new function." It spread like wildfire. A whole thread about the daughter they cut off who made it anyway was then formed after someone discovered my family's firm bio page on the internet, which is petty and lovely. The post had 3 million views a week later, and I remained silent. However, that quiet? They could not have issued a louder news release. Naturally, it didn't end there. Lena looked up from her laptop one night as we were working late. "Well, you might find this interesting." She swiveled her screen in my direction. It was a picture. My mom, carrying a copy of Living in Style with my picture on the cover, outside a Midtown boutique. The caption? "Mistakes are made by even the best households." She was being underestimated by ours. I gazed at it. Was her own daughter just subtweeted by her? Lena blinked. The best part isn't even that. Go over the comments. The remarks: "Ah, you disowned her, girl. She's wealthy now, huh? Is she suddenly your child once more? Sinclairs are currently looking really salty." I didn't chuckle. I also didn't weep. Something simply settled within of me, like the last piece of a puzzle falling into place. They didn't feel proud. They weren't offering an apology. They were rushing. Because I'd turned into the one thing they didn't anticipate, unstoppable in their absence. However, success does not make the scars go away. I opened a letter from a small Georgian art school that weekend. They wanted me to speak at their graduation after seeing my work. Me, the sheep in black, the one who was turned down. They eliminated the daughter. And now, I was being asked to offer guidance to the next generation. I didn't immediately say yes. I had to endure it. I had to bear the burden of all I had brought with me. The things I didn't get to say the night I was banished in that living room. Now, though, I might say it to someone else. Someone more in need of hearing it. I wasn't spiteful when I built this. I finally quit waiting for permission, so I constructed it. And I have only just begun. I literally looked at the screen for a whole minute when I received the official email from the Savannah Institute of Art. Yes, Savannah, requesting me to give their keynote commencement speech. I didn't miss the irony. For being unfocused, embarrassing, and unprofitable, the girl who was expelled from her family was now being called to speak in front of a group of idealists who were pursuing their unrealistic hobbies. It seemed unreal. Lena almost tossed her coffee across the studio when she saw the email. "You must do this." I paused. "But do I? Come on, Sav. This is complete nonsense. You must." She was also correct. Making my family proud was not my motivation. I was doing it because I wish someone had explained to me years ago that making your own decisions isn't selfish. Rather, it's a matter of survival. I replied, yes. The following 2 weeks were spent working, editing, deleting, rewriting, and obsessing. Not because I was unsure of what I wanted to say, but rather because I was certain of it. All I wanted to do was pronounce it correctly. I didn't want to sound like a TED Talk wrapped around a phrase from Pinterest. I wanted to be honest. When the time arrived, I entered the theater with a dry mouth and sweaty palms, but my back was straight. It was a frenzied mix of jitters, hope, and the kind of frantic optimism that only 20-somethings with degrees and no sleep can exude. Using a too-polished professional warmth voice, the dean introduced me. "Please welcome Miss Savannah Carter, the founder of Carter and Company and an award-winning sustainable artist. Cheers. Flights." A spotlight. I took the microphone, inhaled deeply, and spoke the truth. My family got together a few years ago to disown me. Literally. They wrote documents, signed them, and interrupted me. Because I decided to pursue art rather than law school. Because instead of their name, I wanted to use my hands to construct something. Because I didn't have the appearance they desired. Speak as they taught me to. Consider how they required me to think in order for me to be at ease. There was utter silence in the room. From the back row, it sounded like the crinkle of a water bottle cap. They described me as a letdown. So I changed and became unstoppable. I peered into the throng, saw tears, saw rage, recognized the image. They don't tell you this, but pursuing your dreams involves more than just working hard. It has to do with loss. You will be saddened by those who refuse to accompany you. They want you to be little, tasty, and predictable. Additionally, they will turn the page without you when you stop performing the role they wrote for you. A pause. Then I grinned. However, they are unaware that you are currently writing your own book, and you simply keep going even when they try to cut you off. They got up, each and every one, a standing ovation. Cheering is more than just clapping. I left the stage in a daze. My heart was racing, but not because I was afraid. Something else was involved. Something. Whole. I checked my phone that evening. Who did you think had left a voicemail? Mom. Naturally, she said softly, managed. That cautious tone she constantly employed to maintain the appearance of being above it all. I watched the video of your speech, and it was really moving. Very poignant. We're pleased with you. We are. I'm proud. As if we hadn't been strangers under the law 6 months prior. She didn't say sorry, not even mention my name. Now that the world has recognized me, she simply, and I nearly called back for a second. However, I didn't. Because love isn't pride without responsibility. It's public relations. Lena and I received an invitation to an industry event in Los Angeles a few days later. Enormous occurrence. Media attention. Celebrities. Investors in art. And you know who was funding it? International Sinclair. I almost choked on my smoothie from laughing so much. They were unaware that I had been invited. Hell, they probably believed that I was still out there in my garage, gluing trash to tables. But I was here, on the list of guests, as the main act. I contemplated going, yes, I did. Then I reasoned, why not? Not in retaliation, not for show, simply to be in an area they attempted to keep me out of, to unapologetically occupy space. I wore a floor-length, deep crimson silk gown with a raw-edge leather cuff on the night of the gala. It was a bit armor and a little feminine. I had my hair up, I had square shoulders. And when I entered, you sensed it, that change. People whirled, not because I was well known. However, I entered as though I had nothing to prove. Then I caught sight of them, my relatives. Arranged as if in a carefully planned exhibit. Rebecca in sleek black. Daniel hushed a hedge fund manager. As though it were a prop, my mother held a champagne flute. She was the first to notice me. The eyes grew wide. The smile wavered. The performance followed. Savannah! How unexpected! I cocked my head. Is it? She pursed her lips. You look gorgeous. So do you, I answered in a silky voice. Are you still playing flawlessly? Rebecca took over. We had been intending to get in touch. You've accomplished something truly remarkable. I understand. They blinked. I realized that they were still attempting to assess me, to once more choose my place in their world. However, I didn't, since I constructed my own. I was waved over by a famous art investor across the room. Grinning, I excused myself and turned to leave. No resentment. Absent. Only power. Mine. 3 weeks have passed since the gala. Since then, I have not heard from them, which is okay, to be honest. Even better, because realizing that not everyone who shares your blood has the right to your life brings a certain kind of tranquility. Then the letter arrived, delivered by hand. Not sent by email. I didn't text. They were too proud to speak it aloud, as if it were 1950. Sinclair Estate was the return address, and I nearly tossed it out. However, I opened it. There was an official invitation inside. Gold embossing, ivory paper, and that stiff old money font they adore. It said, "You are formally invited to Richard Sinclair's 70th birthday celebration. My dad, official." As though I were a distant acquaintance. Not his daughter. It didn't mention we're sorry or we'd love to see you. You are invited, it said. Like a visitor. A curious thing. Now that the media refers to me as a rising star in sustainable luxury, they want my name on a guest list once more. After reading it again, I burned it in the sink. Literally. I struck a match and let it fall to the corner. Until it vanished, I saw the gold lettering turn black and the edges curl. It wasn't anger. It was made available. Because that invitation wasn't about reconciliation. no matter how nicely they framed it. It has to do with branding, image restoration, a suit and heels rebranding campaign, I informed Lena. She didn't recoil. I'll venture a guess. Does your absence from the pictures suddenly make your dad's legacy incomplete? That kind of thing. As if it were a truth serum. She sipped her iced matcha while leaning back in her chair. Are you leaving? I gave a headshake. Why would I? Closure. I grinned, but my eyes didn't meet it. I don't require resolution. I require space. Because the truth about healing is that it isn't about receiving an apology. It's about opting to go on, despite the fact that you deserved one. Lucas, my brother, arrived 2 days later, in my studio. Unexpected. It was unusual for him to appear uneasy and underdressed as he stood at the door. He is still wearing his medical scrubs. Untidy hair. He appeared to have exhausted all possible justifications and come to terms with his discomfort. He wasn't invited in by me, arms crossed, just leaned on the doorway. He remarked, "You look good." "Thank you." Awkward quiet. "I wanted to check in with you." I arched an eyebrow. "Really? Because you were inquisitive about the sister you assisted in exile, or because you saw the magazine covers?" He flinched. "I was worthy of that. You're worthy of better. However, I'm sick of punishing people." He looked at the floor and nodded. "Back then, I didn't know how to speak up. You made no attempt at all." He raised his head. "No, I didn't. I was also afraid of being disconnected. I could have slapped him with that. I could have brought up the fact that I was alone myself in that room, when the individuals who were meant to care about me decided I was worthless. However, I didn't. Because retribution was no longer the goal. Truth was at issue. You failed to keep me safe. However, I took precautions. Additionally, I'm no longer upset with you. Simply put, I don't trust you." He gave another nod. This time, more slowly. "That's reasonable." For a long time, we stood silently, living in two separate worlds, while sharing the same air. Finally, he inquired, "Would you allow Dad to apologize if he truly wanted to?" I took a while to respond. Due to the complexity of the true answer, would I listen to him? Perhaps. Could I trust him? Most likely not. Would I allow him to return? No, because it's not a revolving door to forgive. It's a line. The internet crashed once more a week later. One of my works was used in a celebrity house tour for a well-known home design show. My direct messages blew out. Sales increased by double. Once more. Then I got an email from Rebecca. "Let's Talk" is the title. That's all. I deleted it without opening it after staring at it for a whole minute. You're not attempting to reconnect if your first reaction, when someone you cut off succeeds, is to talk. Instead, you're attempting to re-affix your brand to theirs. Additionally, you can no longer borrow my brand. Lena and I were wrapping up one evening when she inquired, "Will they ever change, in your opinion?" I gave a headshake. "No. However, I evolved. That is sufficient. After all, this whole situation, the banishment, the stillness, the abrupt attempts to connect, the disownment was ultimately not about love. It has to do with control. I also ceased to allow them to write my story. Right now, I simply write my name at the bottom. I purchased a home for myself last week. Nothing ostentatious, no breathtaking view of the ocean. It's a simple mid-century home with large windows, creaking floors, and a sunroom that seems like it was designed for healing and morning coffee, all nestled beneath a canopy of trees. It has room. Keep quiet. Light. And there isn't even a hint of them in it. If I was purchasing it with a partner, the realtor inquired. "Just me," I replied. She grinned. "Well done." And for the first time, I thought it wasn't merely a courteous response to a situation where people are at a loss for words. It was authentic. I used a branch-shaped hook to hang the keys. One of my compositions. My very first creation, made when I still believed that being creative was a phase I would eventually outgrow. No, I outgrown them. Shortly after moving in, I received a parcel. No address for return. Not a word. There's a photo album within. I initially believed it to be an error. Then I opened it, though. Images of babies. Me in overalls. Paint all over my face. School productions. Cakes for birthdays. My graduation from high school. Every second I thought was either lost or never saved. One picture of me grinning in front of my first solo gallery showing was in the rear pocket. A sticky note was attached to it, in the handwriting of my father. We were mistaken. Now I see you. No signature. That's all. I spent some time sitting with it. Did I cry? Not at all. I felt complex. Perhaps sad. Not smashed, though. It was similar to reading a letter from someone who was 20 years too late to join the discourse. I didn't give him a call. I also didn't discard the album. All I did was place it on the shelf. In a visible location. Not holy, not concealed, just the truth. Similar to the remainder of my life. Closure, according to some, is about conflict. An important moment. A speech. A door that slams. However, mine appeared to be a peaceful space. A shelf brimming with my own creations, and the relief that comes from no longer having to be understood. I attended a local art fair a few days later. Not as a seller. Like me, nobody inquired about my school. Nobody inquired about my father's identity. Nobody made an effort to categorize me. A young kid was pulling her mother to one of my works. "Mom! Look! The cool table lady is here." I grinned. Yes, I am now that. Not the letdown, Savannah Sinclair. Not the failed investment. Not the disobedient daughter. Only Savannah. A woman who survived being disowned. A woman who created art out of grief. A lady who gave up asking, "Will I ever be loved for who I am?" I love who I am, with or without them, he began. The true legacy is that. Not inherited, but what you make in the area where pain formerly was. I didn't require retribution. Freedom was what I needed. And now I have it. That's my tale. I appreciate you listening, Savannah.